Hello everyone, on today's episode we talk about a disease afflicting more people than any other, comparison disease. Hello everyone, as promised in the intro, today I'm going to talk about the topic of comparison disease, something that eats away people from the inside. It's not a genetic or a viral or bacteria disease, but it has the same sort of symptoms and consequences of any disease that's debilitating and takes energy away from you. So to better describe this, as always, I'm going to begin with a quote, and that quote is, "So, our problem is, how is the mind to be set free? And is it possible to set the mind free? Not in layers or in patches, not in little bits here and there, but totally, right through, the unconscious as well as the conscious. Or is the mind ever to be conditioned, ever to be shaped? You have to find out yourself and not wait for me to tell you whether the mind can ever be free. Can the mind only think about freedom, as a prisoner does, and so is doomed never to be free, but always be held within the bondage of its conditioning? Do you understand the problem? Can the mind ever be totally free? Or is it in the very nature of the mind to be conditioned? If it is the fundamental quality of mind to be limited, then there is no question of ever finding out what reality is. Then you can go on repeating that there is God or there is no God, that there is good or there's something else is bad, all of which is within the pattern of a given culture. But to find out the truth of the matter, you have to inquire for yourself into whether the mind can really be free. I say it can, which is not for you to accept or reject. It may be true or it may be my opinion, my fancy, my illusion, and it cannot be the base. You cannot base your life on somebody else's discovery or his illusion, his fancy, or a mere idea. You have to find out. This incredible quote is really at the heart of understanding your mind, not looking for easy shortcuts, and understanding really the limitations of the mind that you impose on it. We have a limitless mind, but we condition it in a framework that really dictates the quality of our life. And this is best understood through comparison disease, not allowing the mind to be free, but constantly comparing it. I heard it once said that when you stop comparing yourself to others, you become perfect. And that's very, very true. We are constantly eating away at our self-esteem by comparison. We've used wise tales over the years, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, things like that, in order to instill in a symbolic form the fact that the human mind shouldn't be held in by constantly evaluating and comparing. And now we're going to look at it in much greater detail. So number one, social media avatars. This is just a incredibly new situation we've had to deal with, and we're struggling. And the reason we're struggling is that all life forms on Earth are incredibly specifically evolved to either their environment, or in humans, their environment and their culture. We come out of the womb ready to deal with all sorts of ancient problems like being hunted, being ostracized, fear of not being loved. All those things are inbuilt. And we've developed cultures and coping mechanisms over the last 2.5 million years. But a thin sliver, in the last 20 years, we've had to deal with social media, which is not just a projection of who you are, which is something we had to learn 100, 200, 5,000 years ago. We had to learn how to project ourselves within a society. We had to learn how to get core strength and values so we can communicate who we were. Now we're creating digital avatars of that. So we no longer are working on ourselves as per se, we're working on our digital avatars. And how do we do that? We shine our best light. We have the best photos with the best filters from the best places in the world. We show ourselves in glowing terms, and we really create and condition this avatar. Why are we doing this? Because we want love. But secondly, because everyone else is doing it. And to be completely honest with a photo, or to be completely honest in the way you present yourself when you're having a bad day, or you're not the best looking person in the world, is almost removed from us because everyone else is putting on these shiny, glossy avatars. And it's almost like a house of cards that everyone is trying to keep up with these fragile things, yet will never ever actually be able to live up to these avatars. It's important to remember that social media should be restricted. It should be part of your day, but not a great part of your day, because it does lead to simple comparisons. It's one thing to intuitively understand that people are putting on their best face, so not to worry about their holidays and their cars and think less of yourself. But the human mind is generally designed to do that, to constantly compare. So limit the amount of time you spend scrolling through other people's lives and spend some time on your life. Number two, duality. Duality is at the absolute core of bringing things into existence. You cannot understand light without darkness. This is a concept you learn very, very early as a child. In order to know that you're happy, you have to compare it to a baseline, or you have to compare it to when you were sad. So therefore, those things are interdependent. Human brain likes to separate things and go, I want good, I don't want bad, not realizing that the duality of the subject is really important. And that's why comparisons it can be such a disease. When you're feeling down, of course you're going to see people that are happy. But those people who are happy are a reflection of grace on how you can feel if you're able to acknowledge the fact that there's happiness and joy in the world. That happiness was not designed by the universe for you to say, well, they're happy, now I feel worse about myself. Duality is the mirror, it's the reflection to understand both sides of movement and form. 2, success. We all want to be successful, yet I have found very few people who can define to me what success means. Isn't that crazy? We all want something, but we can't define it. For me, success is very simple. How you feel right now. If you feel successful, then you are successful. So many people have different ideas of success. They say, when I get that promotion or that boat or I get on that holiday, I'll feel successful. But the clinch is when they get there, those years of training not to feel successful till they got to a certain point kick in, and when they get to that point, they simply don't feel successful. Then we compare other people and believe that they have got it all. We believe that they've reached the mountaintop and they feel successful, not knowing they've trained themselves in the exact same way we did. How do I know that? I've grown up in the exact same culture of deferring success so you can buy more things, work a little bit harder, and never really get there. Number 4, happiness is best understood in observed behaviours. I know there's guys with photos of Ferraris and helicopter rides to the Grand Canyon. I know them. They're on Facebook and social media and Twitter and things like these. But know that happiness is not a set of photos. You cannot understand someone's happiness through what they tell you. It's observed behaviours. So that's why when I hear that a certain person's successful and then I meet them and they're mean or they're cruel, they have a lack of compassion, they're not happy. And when people say, how do you know they're not happy? They have millions of dollars. Happy people behave in a certain amount of way. I know when someone's angry because they might tense up, they might shout. That's the symptoms of anger. You know that anger. The symptoms of happiness are compassion, kindness, the ability to let other people shine, and to be content with what you have without having to show off. So it's important to know the difference between success and happiness, and more importantly, the modern version of success, which will not lead you to happiness. Judgment and forgiveness. We're either doing one of two things, whether on social media or driving our car past someone, we're either judging or comparing. And when we judge people, and it becomes instinctual, we have like, what do we have? We have America's Next Top Model where you're just given numbers out of 10 and, we rate and rank athletes, and we're constantly judging people on very little information. If they're wearing a great suit, we might judge them on being successful. If they're wearing something sloppy, we might say that they're sloppy. Now, the challenge with that is not that judgment is something that is impossible to stop. It's something that every time you judge, ultimately you're judging yourself. When you have lack of compassion for someone else, you have a lack of compassion for yourself. And that's really where it's at. It's not so much that you'll stop judging people in order to be the kindest person on earth. It's that you'll stop judging people so you undo the traits of judging yourself. Second to last, self-compassion leads to outward compassion. When you stop comparing and understand that a lot of people have got it tough, the awareness, the inner you, starts to give yourself a break. And when you give yourself a break, problems disappear. We hold ourselves to such levels of perfection, and those levels of perfection are really hurting us. Because ultimately, when we change our expectations for appreciations, we become happy. And finally, let them eat cake. One of the most ironic things ever said was by Marie Antoinette during the French Revolution, where, whether this is a true story or not, it illustrates a point. She was told that the reason that there was riots breaking out in France was that there was no bread for the peasants to eat. And when she heard this, living obviously in a mansion with unlimited amounts of food and wealth and servants, she said, well, if there's no bread, let them eat cake. Ultimately not understand the link between the fact that if there's no bread, there's no cake. She just thought there might be a shortage of that particular food stuff. Now, one of the things that Marie Antoinette had was the bliss of ignorance. Now, it didn't end well for her, and but it's still a great example of the fact that involving yourself too deeply in problems outside of you ultimately can really draw you into things that you cannot fix. And until you fixed yourself, until Marie Antoinette became a better person, a better understanding person, she was never going to understand the plight of the individuals outside of her. And it would get to the point where she'd make such critical mistakes as saying they can eat cake rather than bread. So understanding that knowing yourself first is the key and primary job that you have in life, which will stop you comparing to others and creating, depression and sadness, and knowing that, you know what? At the end of the day, your happiness is way more important than someone else's happiness. So focus on yourself first and then allow that light to shine so you can help others around you become happier. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.